Howdy ho, everybody. This is Postmortem Nightshade, and I am so happy to be here today on the channel discussing movies with y'all. So, for this video, I wanted to expound on something that I may have mentioned before, which is growing up until I was about 16 or 17, I wasn't actually allowed to watch PG-13 movies. Now, I don't actually know how many people can relate to my upbringing, but I wanted to talk about the movies that I loved that were for the girlies, or guys, because honestly, my brothers enjoyed these movies too, that fell under the realm of PG and lower. And before anyone speculates, no, I do not resent my upbringing with this being the rule. It actually left a huge treasure trove of unwatched movies for me to enjoy for the first time in adulthood once I truly leaned into my love of film. Also, no, I did not end up seeking out PG-13 movies in secret. My dad showed me the Mummy movies and the first two Pirates of the Caribbean films when I was about 7 or 8, but besides that, those were really the only PG-13 movies I had seen up until about being 16 or 17. But being a girl growing up in the early 2000s, surrounded by my mom, my aunts, my girl cousins, and my girlfriends, I of course loved romances, rom-coms, and female friendship movies. And so I would try to find ones that I liked that were rated PG or lower. So, these are the films that I watched growing up, usually around Valentine's Day, that I watched when I was, hanging out with my girlfriends and my family, or the ones that I watched when I was just in the mood for something romantic. I am going to try and keep this video spoiler-free in case you haven't seen any of these films and you want to check them out, but I will give a light spoiler warning just in case for any of my discussion about the movies throughout this video. But, most of these movies fit into a specific category with endings that are usually not a surprise or hard to guess, so there you go. I will also give the disclaimer that many of the movies in part 1 I haven't seen in a long time, but from what I do remember of them, I would highly recommend every movie in this video. So, kicking off the list with part 1, we have Letters to Juliet. This movie came out in 2010, and I actually heard about this movie from friends at school, and when I looked it up at the library, I was so excited to see that it was PG. I was so thrilled to see what it was like because everybody said it was so great. So it stars Amanda Seyfried and Christopher Egan, and we follow Amanda Seyfried's character as she travels to Italy with her fiancé to have a kind of romantic getaway before their wedding. And here she discovers a place where people from all over the world write letters to the statue of Juliet seeking advice. And there's actually a group of women who respond to every letter that is written. While in Italy, Amanda Seyfried's character responds to a long-lost letter that she found, which then prompts Christopher Egan's character to come with his grandma to Italy to find her long-lost love. This is a great movie, and of course, it has the beautiful setting of Italy. Both takes place in the city and the countryside, so absolutely gorgeous. I think this is actually a very underrated rom-com with two very lovable and charming performances from our two leads. And now that I have seen a lot more rom-coms, I would also say this film has one of the more unique premises for the genre. This movie does, however, still follow your classic rom-com formula, but still executes on that formula in a memorable and heartwarming way. Growing up, I really enjoyed this film, and it has always stuck with me. So if you're curious, you can see this film for free with ad support on the Roku channel. And the next film that I did actually watch in theaters when it came out as a kid was Enchanted. So if you aren't aware, this is a mostly live-action Disney movie that stars Amy Adams, James Marsden, and Patrick Dempsey. It is also a musical, but that element is honestly more often played for laughs than anything. And this is the first instance that I can remember growing up where a big studio approached the idea of what would happen if XYZ characters came to our world, aka the real world. Of course, there may have been plenty of other instances of movies having that premise before Enchanted, but it was the first example that I saw of it growing up. And that concept blew my mind as a kid. But besides that mind-blowing concept, I remember the costumes in particular dazzling me as a kid. Giselle wears this beautiful white wedding dress into the real world at the beginning of the movie, and Amy Adams just dazzled in the streets of New York. I thought this movie was super funny, with a great animal sidekick that doesn't distract from the story, but rather enhances it. And the music is splendid. I just listened to the soundtrack so many times, over and over and over as a kid. And the performances from the three leads were all phenomenal, spectacular no-notes. This is, I think, a highly underrated Disney movie that I would encourage you to check out if you haven't. Obviously, since it is Disney, you can watch it on Disney+. Another film I loved particularly as a teen was Bride Wars. This movie has count 'em, two big rom-com juggernauts as its leads, with Kate Hudson and Anne Hathaway playing best friends who get engaged at the same time and want to get married at the same venue in the month of June, which is something they've actually dreamed about since childhood. Hijinks ensue when that dream is threatened, and the two must decide if this dream will ruin their friendship. This is definitely a movie about female friendship rather than, say, a traditional rom com. Think movies more like Clueless rather than, say, The Notebook. It's got great comedic moments, and there are several lines from this film that I still quote to this day. This film is from 2009, but I would say it still holds up really well. Obviously, little me was completely unaware of the success these two women would achieve in the following years regarding the Academy, but both of these actresses hold a special place in my childhood because of this film alone. Unfortunately, there isn't anywhere you can currently stream this film, but you can rent it on the platform of your choice. Coming up on one of my favorite romance movies ever, we have My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Now, while my immediate family wasn't that big growing up, my extended family is huge. And because of this fact, this movie was actually really relatable for me, especially in my later teen years. If you have somehow avoided all knowledge of this movie until now, let me fill you in. Big Fat Greek Wedding is a comedy romance movie, not to be confused with a rom-com genre film, from 2002. This movie stars Nia Vardalos and John Corbett as two unexpected lovers who cross paths, get engaged, and then must work through the many struggles that face all couples when two people come together to get married. This movie is easily one of the most quoted films, not just in my childhood home, but I heard the lines from this movie a lot growing up from people everywhere. And it's for good reason. The movie has great pacing, relatable characters, and so many funny moments. Obviously, the humor comes from not only the performances of our leads, but the supporting cast in this movie is a particular standout. The set and costume design aren't too over the top, as it seems this film is truly trying to let the story and characters shine so that the audience can best connect with the creative material. This is easily an all-time great comedy movie and an all-time great romance movie, so 2 for 1. And you can watch it right now on HBO Max if you're interested. And while all of the films I have mentioned up until this point had comedy as a big part of the movie, Pride and Prejudice from 2005 is solidly a romance movie with only a few moments of light comedy sprinkled throughout. Pride and Prejudice is, of course, another film adaptation of Jane Austen's wildly popular book of the same name. In this film, we follow the enemies to lovers trope as the main characters, Lizzie and Mr. Darcy, find that the most perfect match for both of them is the person they have the most contempt for throughout most of the film's runtime. This story easily has one of the most interesting and engaging cast of side characters that enrich the story and add to the layers of Lizzie and Mr. Darcy's romance. The two leads in this particular adaptation are played by Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden, and I would say everyone has their favorite adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, and for me, this one is definitely my favorite. I have watched this film at least 100 times, not only for the romance, but for the score and the scenery. The soundtrack of this film is one of my all-time favorites, and the larger-than-life naturescapes combined with the stunning architecture that surrounded the characters makes this a gorgeous-looking film. Please add this to your watch list if you haven't already seen it, and if you have, add it to your rewatch list because it's so worth it. This adaptation of Pride and Prejudice is currently streaming on Peacock, so you can watch it there. And I don't know if I would say this next film is lesser known, but I personally haven't heard it talked about much, and that film is Leap Year. And while Pride and Prejudice sits solidly in the romance category, as we talked about just a moment ago, this film swings solidly back into the rom-com side of things. Leap Year came out in 2010 and once again stars Amy Adams, but this time her love interest is played by Matthew Goode. This film takes place in Ireland around, you guessed it, leap year, when Amy Adams is stranded in the countryside of beautiful Ireland, trying to reach the city of Dublin to propose to her boyfriend. But during this escapade, she runs into Matthew Goode's character, and you guessed it again, hijinks ensue. While this is not my favorite movie on this list, the premise is interesting, the scenery is beautiful, and the two leads do a charming job selling their roles. So if I piqued your interest with this one, it currently can be found on Amazon Prime. Now, this might be a hot take, not sure, let me know in the comments, but I think Disney has some forgotten or underrated gems, a lot of those that particularly came out during my childhood, and this next film is one of those. I'm talking about Princess Diaries 2: The Royal Engagement. Now, while I think that the first Princess Diaries has gotten some renewed love and attention, I personally grew up rewatching and loving the second Princess Diaries film. Anne Hathaway returns to reprise her role in the second installment, but this time her love interest is played by Chris Pine. And now maybe you can understand my preference for the second film over the first. But besides the swoon worthy love interest, this film introduced me to the concept of love triangles. And this film's love triangle is a very similar one to the one actually found in The Notebook. You know, the movie where the rich girl picks the bad boy because of chemistry and passion or some shit, rather than the kind, rich, handsome, compassionate guy. Ugh, sorry, tangent aside, more on my thoughts about The Notebook later. The point is, this is a great romance movie that also sees Julie Andrews back as the Queen of Genovia, and she is, of course, a treat to see in any film, and that is especially true in this one. Easy to say, this was one of my absolute favorites growing up, and so if you're interested, this is another that can be found on Disney+. A hidden gem from 2006, Penelope has plenty of style and heart to melt anyone looking for a great romance film. In this film, Christina Ricci is cursed with pig-like features, which are supposed to make her ugly. But, I mean, come on, this is Christina Ricci we're talking about. She's gorgeous even with the pig-like features. But anyway, James McAvoy plays her love interest, and Catherine O'Hara plays her overly controlling mother, who is trying to find her daughter a match so as to break the curse of her having pig-like qualities. All three leads give great performances, and the style and aesthetic of this movie feels unique in comparison to most of the other movies, I would say, in part one. Penelope's character actually wears this signature scarf and peacoat that I would love to have in my own closet. So this movie easily gets a big recommend for me. Obviously not just for the wardrobe, but the story is great too. So you can actually check this one out on Tubi. And I do actually want to take a moment to pass my condolences on to Catherine O'Hara's friends and family. She was an incredible talent that I know I will miss deeply, and I know that many others will too. So may she rest in peace. This next movie I would watch on my sick days all the time, and so coming up here we have Monte Carlo. Selena Gomez, Katie Cassidy, and Leighton Meester go on a trip to Paris and wind up on the trip of a lifetime after Selena Gomez's character is mistaken for a famous heiress and actually goes to Monte Carlo, posing as the alternate rich version of herself. Here, she falls in love with the son of a philanthropist, and you'll have to watch the movie for yourself to see how this one ends. I wouldn't say there is anything particularly special about this movie, but it has great outfits, plenty of sparkly jewelry, and character makeovers both inside and out. There is also, of course, a love story with a guy in a faraway romantic place, and that just allows any hopeless romantic to have a fun time watching this film. This is another movie that is unfortunately not streaming anywhere, but you can rent it on the platform of your choosing. Now, I know this next film may be an unpopular opinion, but I absolutely love the 2015 live action remake of Cinderella. This was Disney's first attempt at live action remakes and is easily the best one, in my opinion. Lily James plays Cinderella with Kate Blanchett as the wicked stepmother and Richard Madden as the prince. And if you know me at all from this channel, you know I love Kate Blanchett, and her performance in this role is an underrated Disney great. This movie manages to capture the magic of the original animated film and expound on it even more to create a movie that I have rewatched many times. The recreation of Cinderella's dress in this film is breathtaking and, dare I say, is even better than the original. But the costuming for the prince, and particularly the wicked stepmother, are also standouts, with the latter's costumes being so full of rich color and patterns that convey so much about her character without her having to say anything. The romance between Cinderella and the prince is swoon-worthy, of course, no doubt, and this is the only Disney live-action remake that managed to awe me and sweep me off my feet. So, of course, this film again, since it's Disney, can be found on Disney+. So please, check it out. Up next, we have a slightly more unconventional romance, but still one that should be on your radar, Better Off Dead. This is the film in part one that leans the most into the comedy genre, with the romance element being highly secondary. And I will also say that some of the stop-motion looking comedy elements in this film can be quite bizarre, but if you go in with an open mind, I think that this film will be a fun ride for you. This movie also came out in the 80s, so some of the comedy falls into the they could never make that today genre, similar to the TV show The Office, so be aware of that going in. Additionally, the MPAA rating system of the 80s was much looser than it is now, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So, this is really the only movie in part one that I would say leans the closest to the PG-13 rating while still actually being PG. This movie came out in 1985 and stars John Cusack as a high school boy who gets broken up with, but then finds new love in the foreign exchange student across the street. This could also be considered a sports romance movie, which I know there aren't many of, but the sport of skiing plays a decent sized role in this film. This is easily one of the most quotable movies I've seen in my life, and for me, that's a great sign, because it means a film is memorable enough that it comes up at random points in your day to day experience.
Go that way. Really fast. If something gets in your way, turn.
So, if you're up to trying something a little bit different, you can find this movie for rent on any platform you'd like. And we are down to the last two movies in part one, so the penultimate movie for this section of the video is You Again. Released in 2010, this film has some big names across its cast, including Kristen Bell, Sigourney Weaver, Betty White, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Odette Annable. The closest movie I could compare You Again to is Mean Girls, with the elements of high school bullying and comedy. However, this looks at our two lead characters long after high school in their adult lives when Kristen Bell's character's brother, that's a tongue twister, gets engaged to her bully played by Odette Annable. This is a fun comedy for the whole family, with lots of great humor, heart, and even a little bit of romance sprinkled in. If you're curious about this one, it can be found currently on Disney+. And finally, for part one, the only animated movie on this list is Anastasia. If you'd like a video going over my favorite animated movies, let me know in the comments, but I thought that Anastasia fit quite well in this category of the video. Now that Disney owns 20th Century Fox, I guess that Anastasia is technically a Disney princess, but growing up for me, she got to be in a category all her own. This is a film from 1997 starring Meg Ryan as Anastasia and John Cusack as her love interest. Now, Anastasia is a musical, but don't let that deter you, as the songs in this movie are top-notch. The story surrounds a political upheaval in Russia that leaves most of the royal family dead except for, you guessed it, Anastasia. She then employs the help of John Cusack's character to aid in regaining her memory about who she is and finding her long-lost grandmother. This movie is so fun, with lovable characters, and a dark side that I would say falls in line the most with The Dark Cauldron more than any other Disney movie. The villain is spectacular, and the romance is a delight to watch unfold. With beautiful animation that captures so many amazing locations in Europe, this is just a great animated film in general, and a great romance movie. And as I mentioned, since this is now classified as a Disney movie, you can watch this film on Disney+. Well, now that we've talked about my favorite movies that stay out of that PG-13 category, in part two, I also wanted to talk about the movies that I love now that I watch any film I want, regardless of the MPAA rating. So, for the girlies and guys who have decided to watch whatever tickles their fancy, these are some of my new favorites, starting with Mamma Mia. Boy, talk about a movie that carried me into adulthood. Mamma Mia is one of my new all-time favorites. With incredible music pulled straight from ABBA's catalog, this movie has enough joy, fun, and carefree energy to get you through even the hardest days. Whenever I feel down or hopeless, I throw on this movie. It's a true celebration of how it feels to be a woman at any stage of life. Mamma Mia also has a stacked cast whose performances bring heart, whimsy, and a fun-in-the-sun attitude that is infectious. With greats such as Meryl Streep, Amanda Seyfried, Pierce Brosnan, Colin Firth, and Stellan Skarsgård, to name a few, this movie is stacked to the gods. With the magical setting of an island in Greece, this story follows Amanda Seyfried's character as she tries to figure out which of the three men her mother was with in her youth is actually her father, all while getting married herself. Another one of my most rewatched movies. This is an easy recommendation from me, and you can currently rent it on the platform of your choosing, although it does bounce around various streaming services from time to time. Okay, I know that I was hating on The Notebook earlier, but this film has definitely grown on me. There is this great channel on YouTube called Cinema Therapy. If you haven't watched any of their content, please give it a try. I think that channel is doing such amazing and important work. But the therapist on the show says something often about movies that may not have the best messages, and that is you can watch and enjoy and love movies with problematic messaging, so long as you are watching all movies with your brain turned on. And I love that because there are so many movies I enjoy, including many I have talked about throughout this video that have problematic messaging. But as long as you're aware of that and don't live your life by those messages, then enjoy those types of movies all you want, because I definitely do. And The Notebook is one of those movies for me. It's a very famous romance from 2004 with Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, who both give stellar performances as the two leads of a 1940s romance. The primary relationship in this movie is definitely not the one that I would choose to pursue, but the fantasy of a passionate and forever youthful romance with the bad boy works very well for this movie and its story, so have fun with it. So you can definitely check this one out, and please do, because I think it's very good, but also don't forget to watch movies with your brain turned on. The Notebook is currently streaming on HBO Max. The early 2000s, of course, as many know, were prime time for rom-coms, and this next one is absolutely no exception: How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey play the classic trope of two professionals working in New York in the magazine and marketing industry, and they actually cross paths in a very unlikely way when they are both working on projects to get ahead in their career that force them to stay in a relationship for 10 days. This is such a fun and funny movie, and the laughs mostly rely on, what I would call cringe humor, which you honestly really only see mostly on the internet nowadays rather than on the big screen. This movie is very, very charming, and of course added to the collection of dresses in film that produced the legendary Top of the Stairs stare. I think one of the things that make rom-coms work the best is the chemistry between the two leads, and Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey have that in spades in this film. So, a great one to add to your letterboxd. Check this film out on Peacock. Up next, we have a film that falls into the teen classics category, and that is Clueless. This movie has easily some of the best outfits ever, and while some are more over the top than others, they are all fun and memorable in their own way, easily adding this film to a list of best dressed characters ever put to screen. Alicia Silverstone plays a rich teenager in LA who experiences many woes throughout the film while navigating love and friendship. This is definitely another film you should watch with your brain turned on, especially when it comes to Alicia Silverstone's interactions with Paul Rudd's character. But, besides that, this is another one of the most quoted films of all time, with great one-liners and plenty of pizzazz to keep you rolling with the homies. This film is totally off the chain. You can find this teen classic on Pluto TV, which is free with ads. And Reese Witherspoon gave us Girlies another great in 2001, that is Legally Blonde. A classic story about how women can achieve incredible things and look great while doing it. Legally Blonde is a story about a love-struck woman who follows her recent ex-boyfriend to Harvard Law School to try and win him back, while discovering where her self-worth truly lies. Another quotable banger, this film has easily connected with teens and young adults for decades because of its lovable lead character and inspiring message to be yourself in any room. And although this movie teaches women to be the lead in their own stories, there is also some romance sprinkled in for good fun. If you happen to have MGM Plus, which I don't know anybody who does, but otherwise Legally Blonde is available to rent on any platform you wish. Moving right along here, we have a classic that needs no introduction, Mean Girls. If somehow you're not aware of this cultural juggernaut, allow me to introduce you to one of the greatest comedies of all time. Hitting theaters in 2004, Mean Girls follows a new girl who infiltrates the group of popular girls at her school, aka the Plastics, to take them down from the inside out at the behestment of the only two true friends that she made once moving to this new town. But the real question is, can she stay true to who she is when surrounded by the greatness that is the Plastics? The two leads of this movie are Lindsay Lohan and Rachel McAdams, and they knock it out of the park in this film. Endlessly quoted and memed, I will insert some of the greats here.
She doesn't even go here!
Hi, this is Karen Smith. It's 68 degrees, and there's a 30% chance that it's already raining.
And as is apparent by those clips, this movie is not only highly quotable, but this is probably the most popular high school comedy movie of all time. At least by millennial and Gen Z standards. It has great laughs, great performances, and still plenty of heart in there to teach you some important lessons about popularity and friendships. Also, Karen Smith is easily one of my most favorite characters of all time. Please, if you haven't, give this film a watch. You can currently check it out on Pluto TV or Paramount Plus. And if you would like a long-form video from me talking about Baz Luhrmann, comment below because I absolutely love, capital Love, his style of filmmaking, and this next film of his is no exception. Moulin Rouge is a 2-hour-long fever dream, in the best way I might add, from 2001. And this film stars Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor as the two leads. This musical follows a young man in love with a showgirl who is trying to save the theater by being with a wealthy, seemingly much older man. And that's all I'll say, because this film is such a fun ride. The costuming and colors are magnificent, and Baz Luhrmann has such a talent for taking you to another world that, while it still looks like our own, it is some fantastical, flashy, ulterior version that is just a feast for your eyes. So I'm a bit of a gluttonous visuals whore, and Baz Luhrmann easily satisfies my appetite every time. And if you're open to trying something new or different from a lot of the other films on this list, give Moulin Rouge a try. You can watch it right now on Netflix. So many films in this video need no introduction, and the next film I have for you fits that bill to a T. Ha! Pun fully intended. Titanic! One of the most financially successful movies of all time, from a director who is as equally successful as this movie, Titanic is a cornerstone of the modern romance genre as we know it. The story, of course, follows a young man and woman who perchance meet on the most infamous ship in history, and though the young woman is engaged to a wealthy, abusive man, she falls in love with a much less financially advantageous artist from a few decks below her. Coming out in 1997, James Cameron directed Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in a romance to stand the test of time. And like the basic bitch I am, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. The visual effects have held up incredibly, and while the costuming isn't as mind-blowing as a Baz Luhrmann movie, it definitely helps transport you to the time. This is a film that truly deserves the term epic. So, if you're curious to make up your mind as to whether or not the fuss is worth it, give it a watch on Pluto TV or the Roku channel, which are both free with ad breaks. And the Brits are at it again, but this time they are bringing us a holiday romance film, Love Actually. This film from 2003 follows a wide variety of characters played by British juggernauts, all experiencing different types and phases of love around the holidays. Some are heartwarming, while others are unfortunately heartbreaking, but through it all, you can be sure to have a great time, especially if you have added this to your Christmas rewatch list like I have. But to be honest, this film can be watched any time of the year, and you will be just as entertained as you would be at Christmas time. The variety of stories keeps this movie going at a great pace despite a longer runtime, and the color palette of each scene truly brings the chilliness and warmth of the holiday season to you, wherever you're watching this film. But as I've said before with a few other films on this list, definitely watch this one with your brain turned on. This film is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. Speaking of watching with your brain turned on, The Phantom of the Opera is a gothic romance with breathtaking music, even if the story is questionable at best. A classic love triangle, originally from Broadway, this property was adapted to film in 2004. As someone who grew up being involved in the music community a lot, if you enjoy the music of this film, please listen to the Broadway recording of it, as that is truly the best way to enjoy Andrew Lloyd Webber's incredible musical talent. But the cast of this film adaptation do a pretty decent job with not only the intense musical requirements, but also the complex and often confusing story beats. This movie stars Gerard Butler as the Phantom, Emmy Rossum as Christine, and Patrick Wilson as Raoul. Patrick Wilson is particularly swoon-worthy in this film, which blew my mind when I finally realized who he was, given that I now enjoy his talent exclusively in the horror genre. I won't try to explain too much, but in the story you follow Christine, a young and upcoming lead soprano who has been coached by the Phantom of the Opera, a mysterious man that lives in the catacombs beneath the opera house. Romantic tensions arise when Raoul, Christine's childhood friend, takes notice of her beauty and talent and wishes to have her as his bride. While this film currently isn't streaming anywhere, you can rent it on the platform of your choosing. And this next film was an attempt to revitalize the rom-com genre, and though the ones that came after were questionable, Crazy Rich Asians is definitely not, and is a great addition to the genre it fought so hard to reinvigorate. This movie stars Constance Wu and Henry Golding as the two leads, and the story follows the struggles that Constance Wu's character goes through in order to try and be accepted by her boyfriend's very rich family. This movie is not only a great comedy and romance story, but it also allows the setting, Singapore, to feel like its own lively character, which I really enjoyed. The story also takes the angle of mother-in-law struggles, but presents that struggle with a modern and culturally significant edge. Definitely check this film out, and it is available for rent on any platform that's easiest for you. Going back in time here, next up is Pretty Woman. This 1990 classic has the queen of romance herself, Julia Roberts, playing a lady of the night, if you know what I mean, who starts to fall in love with her very wealthy male client, which of course causes tension since their lives are so different. And tune in to find out how this movie ends. I'm just kidding. You know how these kinds of movies always end, but this is a great one nonetheless, and is a true staple for any person who enjoys a good romance movie. You can currently stream this film on Disney+. The second to last film we'll be discussing today has a sequel releasing in May of 2026, but the original came out in 2006. It's The Devil Wears Prada. Starring two women who have already both appeared in other movies in this video, we have Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep, leading this fashion world power struggle fight to the death. The real question of this story is, will Anne Hathaway's character be corrupted by the very cutthroat and cynical nature of her boss at a fashion magazine company? This film is labeled a comedy drama on Google, and that is a very accurate genre reading for this film. Don't go in expecting too much of any kind of romance element, but do be prepared to see two great actresses work together to bring this great script to life. Check this movie out before the sequel hits theaters by watching the OG on Disney+. And sadly, we're already to the end of the video, but I saved the best for last. This last movie we'll be talking about is easily in my top 10 of all time, When Harry Met Sally. Boy, where to even begin with this film? I knew it was a classic people adored, but I've been burned by that before, so I went in cautiously with little expectation. And I am so happy to say this film blew me out of the water. In 1989, Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal led this film in a classic enemies to lovers trope, following Harry and Sally throughout various points in their lives in New York City. Also, yes, you heard that right, the voice actor for Mike Wazowski is the romantic lead of this film, and he is phenomenal. The writing in this film is seamless, witty, and charming, with each of the characters interacting seamlessly, creating what is, in my opinion, one of the best love stories ever told. The setting of New York City, particularly around the fall and early winter seasons, creates naturally stunning cinematography, and gives the film a very warm and lived-in quality. I loved this film and implore you to please give it a chance. It really is as amazing as people say. This film is currently streaming on Disney+, although it does bounce around streaming services quite often. Well, there you have it. Hopefully this video has found the girlies and guys who grew up like me PG-13 free, and hopefully everyone watching got at least one new movie recommendation they can check out to enjoy around this season of love as we head into springtime. But let me know in the comments, did you grow up without PG-13 movies like I did? How do you feel about that experience? And what films have you enjoyed if you watch anything now regardless of the MPAA rating? But I want to give a big thank you to everyone for taking time out of your day to spend with me, and if you'd like to follow along on my movie review and film discussion journey, please like, subscribe, and follow, and I will see y'all very soon.